Australian authorities warn people about rising floodwaters after days of rain in New South Wales. To Australia now. And the authorities in New South Wales continue to warn people about rising waters as days of rain in much of the most populous state have swollen rivers and caused flooding. For more on this, I am joined now by ABC News Australia reporter Lucy Thackeray, who's in New South Wales covering the floods. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I mean, Australia's east coast is certainly no stranger to flooding. So what have we seen? Anything on this scale so far? Is it worse than the floods that you experienced earlier in the year?
Absolutely. So this is comparative to the 2010 floods, which were the last significant floods in inland New South Wales. And that's because this has been building for almost a year. So the local SES, who are tasked with trying to help with these types of rescue efforts, they've been in flood operations since November of last year. And that's because Australia has just entered its third consecutive La Nina, and there has been incredible amounts of water. So fortunately, dams have been used to hold back water and then release it down rivers at times when it can handle it without causing, the communities that live alongside these rivers to be inundated. But it's just been a situation where the rain has continued to fall and there is more than the countryside can deal with. The catchments are completely saturated, and then there was huge rainfall. Even the tiniest amounts is translating into huge flooding. And so large flash flooding events also occurred on top of those river rises. And it has caused flooding right across not only inland New South Wales, but also along the east coast, along the coast, which hasn't been impacted like that. But that's rather flash flooding from this, situation that has just popped up with the rainfall.
I mean, emergency services have just been inundated with requests for assistance. How are they handling the situation?
They largely rely on volunteers, so it's been a very difficult situation, and they're calling in the Defence Force. They've brought in helicopters across inland New South Wales to try and help. There are farmers that have been isolated for more than a month now, and it's a very sad situation for them because first they lived through the drought. I mean, this landscape less than 3 years ago was completely parched. These dams that are now in many cases spilling or completely full, they were empty less than 3 years ago, and people had lived through the worst drought in living memory in Australia 3 years ago, and they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to keep their stock alive. And now, less than 3 years later, they are dealing with floodwaters. They're flooded in their homes. They've put their stock to the highest ground possible, but there have been livestock losses already. And there is the warning that this situation could continue until January. There is more rain to come later on this week, and it's quite a daunting prospect given just how much rain there's already been. So the difficulty with floods is obviously the pace, the wait and see. So people have done everything they can, but now there's just water coming and there's simply nothing more they can do. So SES have been helping. There's been drops to stock, but also resource drops to people who have been stuck in their homes for some time. And very, very difficult situation.
Lucy Thackeray from ABC News in Australia. Thank you very much for that update. Now, the Venezuelan government says 22 people have been killed in recent torrential rains. The figure comes after 6 more people were killed by landslides on Sunday. 52 people are missing in one of the worst affected areas, Las Tarijas. Venezuela's vice president has been visiting the area. The El Pato River, south of Caracas, burst its banks and floodwaters swept away several houses and shops. 1,000 emergency personnel are taking part in search and rescue operations.